Okay. I'm going to go ahead and call our meeting to order. On behalf of the governing board, I want to welcome everyone to tonight's meeting. Members of our public are attending both in person and remotely through YouTube Live. And in a few minutes, I'm going to read the rules of order for public comment at governing board meetings. If you wish to make a comment remotely, you should have signed up using the Google form that's available under the YouTube Live description. If you don't see the link to the Google form to speak, you can refresh the YouTube live stream. If you're attending in person, the purple form request to address the governing board is available on the table in the back of the room. It is Tuesday, May 27th, 2025. It is 6:30 p.m. and this is a regular meeting of the Catalina Foothills School District Governing Board. So I would like to welcome you once again and ask you all to stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So these will be our rules of order for public comment at governing board meetings. The governing board welcomes public comments at its meetings by providing 2 opportunities for the public to address the board. If your topic of interest is not on the agenda, you may address the board during public comments time slot near the beginning of each meeting. Or if the topic is on the agenda, you may speak just prior to the discussion of that agenda topic. In the event that there is a public hearing, the opportunity to speak will be reopened. If you are joining remotely and wish to make public comment, you should have already submitted the Google form provided with the YouTube link. Right now, I'm not seeing any public comment logged in from online, so if you're wishing to comment, make sure you refresh your YouTube link and pull up that form and get that filled out. For those attending in person, again, the purple form is on the desk at the back of the room. The information requested on the form is required for our meeting minutes. Speakers will be called on when it's their turn to address the board. And for those attending remotely, if you choose to enable your camera, you may do so. As a reminder to remote attendees who wish to speak, please unmute your microphone when you're called upon. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to address the board. The sound of a buzzer indicates the end of your 3 minutes. In the event of a large number of speakers, the board may need to limit the time so that they can conduct the business on the agenda. By law, the board cannot discuss, consider, or vote on topics that are not on the agenda. This assures the community that they're aware of the topics that will be discussed this evening. If you wish to discuss a topic through written communication, board members' contact information can be found on the district's website. We appreciate the community's attendance and comments at this meeting, and thank you all for coming this evening. So I am going to turn this over to the best part of the evening, which is our item 1.4, our CFSD Star Award. Tonight, the Star Award is being presented to the Catalina Foothills High School Boys Tennis Division II State Championship Team and Division II Doubles Players of the Year, Santiago Astengo and Jamie and Parker Servos. And Division II Singles Player of the Year, Austin Cohen, and Division II Coach of the Year, Ben Loeb. Our board member, Tom Logue, is eagerly waiting to present to our tennis team, so I'm going to turn the meeting over to Tom.
This is the best part.
Really is.
All right, good evening. Tonight we are honoring our boys tennis team for their exceptional season. In a minute, I will ask the team to join me up here, but first I want to recognize someone who could not be here tonight, which is Coach Ben Loeb. I know he was going to try to join on the live stream, but since he is not here, I want to tell you a little bit about him. Many of you probably already know all of this, but I found it impressive. So we're honoring Coach Loeb tonight based on this year's successes, which include winning the Arizona Division II Boys Coach of the Year for his work with this team. But that is just the most recent chapter in a legacy of winning. Coach Loeb has been a high school tennis coach since 1989. And in that time, he has coached his teams to over 1,280 wins with an 88% overall win rate. Appropriate wows, yes. This is the first year that Coach Loeb has coached at Catfoot and his first state championship in Arizona. However, back in Missouri, he has led 19 teams to state championships. And when he is not collecting state championships and coaching accolades, he is also an author and a speaker. He has published 4 books about coaching and sports psychology, and in his writings and on his website and in his speeches, he emphasizes his team-first approach to success that I know you all experienced this season. Coach sent me a statement to read, and it does a great job summing up the significance of what we're celebrating tonight, so I will read this from Coach Loeb. I want to thank the Catalina Foothills School District Governing Board for recognizing the team for the historic accomplishments in Arizona State High School tennis during the 2025 season. The team had an undefeated season while winning the state championship and finishing first and second in the individual state singles and doubles tournaments. It was a great journey during the season in addition to all of these accomplishments. That is a reflection of the character of the boys on this team. It's also an honor to be named Division II Boys Coach of the Year. This does not happen without talented players who are willing to invest in the process of seeking high achievement. I thank them for their efforts. And thank you again to the board for recognizing the team and its members. So that's a statement from Coach. I also had a chance to interview him last week, spoke with him a little bit, and it was immediately clear to me how proud he was of this team and how much he cares about each and every one of these boys. And it stood out to me that he was just as attuned to each player's personality and individuality as he was to their skill sets and athletic development. So, Coach, if you're listening, thank you for your leadership and dedication this year, and you will be receiving your Star Award in the mail. So now let's honor our team. When I call your names, please join me up here so I can present you with your award, and then stay up here so I can embarrass you a little. We'll start with Santiago Astengo Jaime. Ahmed Bostoan. Congratulations. Austin Cohen. Rashen Fadia. Finn Griffiths. In absentia, all right. Jason Gia. Kai Sadala. Parker Servas. Zachary Wagenheim. And Aaron Zeldin. All right. So thank you all for hanging out up here. Many of the people in attendance tonight already know how impressive our boys tennis team is. This, after all, is a team that just won their 10th state title in the last 11 years and 18th title overall. The athletes being honored tonight have continued a long-standing tradition of excellence. At the risk of being redundant, I want to revisit Coach's statement earlier, and there was a lot crammed in there that I think it makes it hard to appreciate the level of achievement here. So first, yes, they won the state title. They didn't just win the state title. They also had an undefeated season, undefeated 19-0, including a win against Brophy, which is a very strong Division I program. Huge accomplishments. Yeah, clap. Go for it. want to embarrass them a little bit. Santi and Parker won the state doubles tournament, and they won that tournament against Ahmed and Aaron. Yes, the top two pairs were both from Catfoot. So we have the winners and the runners-up in the state doubles tournament here. Austin Cohen won the state singles title against runner-up Jason Gia. The top two singles players in the state are from Catfoot. And I also want to note that Austin was ranked the top player in Arizona by the Tennis Recruiting Network and will be attending Division I William and Mary in the fall to continue his tennis career. This is a really impressive group of athletes we have in front of us. Congratulations to all of you for your individual and team accomplishments, and thank you for representing Catalina Foothills High School through your play, your sportsmanship, and your dedication. Let's hear it for our state champion boys tennis team. And then y'all feel free to take additional pictures.
Charles, you should get back. Get with him. Big AV, don't want. State tennis experiences. I bet they're cute.
Thank you, Tom, for such a great presentation. Thank you, team, for joining us this evening and for representing Catalina Foothills so well. And Santiago, I apologize. I completely messed up your name in the introduction to this section. I apologize. We're going to go ahead and move on with our meeting. You guys are all welcome to stay if you're interested in the items on our agenda this evening. We certainly understand if you have other places to be this evening as well. So if you do need to leave, we'll give you a few minutes to clear out. Thanks for coming.
Congratulations.
Mm. Nice job, Tom. Okay. I think we're going to go ahead and move on to the next section of our meeting, which is our item number 2, our public comment section. I do have 2 purple requests to address the governing board that have been turned in. Amy, this is everything? I still don't see anything online, so we're going to go ahead and go with the in-person commenters right now. The first person that we have commenting this evening is Jennifer Lauer. She's a district parent, and she is here to speak regarding the wireless device legislation and our policy.
Hello, thank you. Will you tell me as the timer starts, or when the first word comes out of my mouth?
Amy's our timer over there.
Oh, perfect. We have a lot to say, and we have little time to say it. That's all I have to say. So I'm going to be talking very fast tonight. I'm Jennifer Lauer, and I'm here with Laura Thompson and Reagan Prefling. We are the co-founding members of Tech Aware Parents. We named ourselves. Earlier this year, it's called TAP. We formed because we met at a technology meeting and had like minds about concerns about technology for our kids. So we've been working on some stuff, and Laura's going to talk to you more about something different when I'm done. So I'm here to talk about the new law, HB 2484, that recently passed, limiting student wireless device use and restricting social media on campus, which includes all breaks during the day. We are here, and I could be preaching to the choir here, and I probably am, but I'm just going to give my 3-minute spiel. We're here to urge you to implement at all grade levels what is becoming best practice and has been implemented in districts here and around the world. A bell-to-bell policy that requires all smart devices, phones, watches, and earbuds to be turned off and securely stored during the school day, with approved exceptions. You, as the board, have a unique opportunity to gift our students something profoundly valuable. Up to 7 uninterrupted hours every school day, free from all the social media pressure, constant distraction, cyberbullying, addictive and inappropriate content, and just overall digital overload. Of course, there may be some initial pushback, but there will also be pushback for people that want this. It's been done successfully with strong leadership, defined processes, clear communication, and community education, which I think is really important, using proven strategies, toolkits, and resources that we can help provide. How might this work? Well, there's lots of options, but one might be where you show up to school and you put your phone in a bin that has the name of the teacher of your last class. That gets stored away in the office, and at the end of the day, the bin is delivered to that class. Relatively easy. So let me give you some stats, some of which you already know. 95% of teachers nationwide report that anxiety and depression are problems in public schools. Smartphones and social media are major contributors, it's been proven. Students get over 230 notifications per day on average, many during school. Just 3 hours of social media use doubles the risk of poor mental health, and 95% of teenagers are on it up to 5 hours, or average of 5 hours a day, in or outside of school. Studies have shown 97% of students use phones during school for an average of 43 minutes. 1 in 3 teens report being exposed to pornography at school. 35% have admitted using their phones to cheat. In schools that actually allow phone use only between classes, 73% of teachers still report disruption related to that during class. So you can't turn it off, and it's not that easy. If students know they're going to be able to check their phones when the bell rings, it's been shown that probably 10 minutes or so before that class is over, they're starting to think about that. On the breaks, there's very little social interaction. If you don't have one, you're probably isolated. Research shows that it can take 20 minutes after being on the phone to refocus in the next class. So we're talking about 30 minutes that you don't have fully present students. So I'm going to turn the rest of my last comment over to my colleague here. But we do urge that you implement this, and 83% of teachers nationwide support this policy.
Thank you. Okay.
I've studied brain studies.
Our next speaker is going to be Laura Thompson on the same subject.
Good evening. My name is Laura Thompson, and I am here with Jennifer and Reagan as well. We are the founders of a community forum called Tech Aware Parents, and we actually met at a school-sponsored function where Mr. MC, he's Noah Mickey Coleman at Ventana, was hosting a session for parents to learn about how to do parental controls on our devices at home. And consequently, we were also reading Jonathan Haidt's book about the anxious generation, which I know is, I think you all have heard of. And also, we decided, let's keep meeting and talking about this. We continued to meet over several months. We consolidated research from national organizations, and we consolidated it into a website, which is now public. It's for Catalina Foothills. It's called Tech Aware Parents. And we also worked with the administration and launched a survey. My role today is to pass with you our survey results. There's a lot to unpack, and there's no way I can do it in 3 minutes. So we left copies, and we will be emailing you some of this. The website has a ton of resources, and also the survey, parents gave comments. But I'm gonna do some wave tops here. 268 participants, 93% of the parents that participated are very or somewhat concerned about the impact of personal devices of students' well-being. And these are parents in our district. 82% of parents supported a bell-to-bell policy that prohibits the use of personal devices from start to finish of the school day. And this is K through 12, not just K through 8. And then what is really notable is 65% of parents would like more information on the Centingix system, not sure what it's called, but the new system, I think we need to get more information out about that. So with the limited time, I would just offer, please unpack the survey results, read what parents say, but I want to highlight one of the biggest concerns, which is safety. Parents literally some parents have stated, I want my child to call 911. I want my child to call me in case of a school shooting or an emergency. And I understand that concern, and I guess my thoughts would be to mitigate that. We need to improve the confidence in our parents that the school and the local authorities have some things under control here. I know you have contingency plans, so one of our suggestions is to maybe let's educate our families on how the system works and how teachers have it under control, and it may ease the implementation of this. But that was one of the main reasons parents want their kids to have phones. But we'd also found studies that phones during an incident distract from following instructions. It could alert an intruder of where someone is hiding. It can spread rumors causing confusion, interfere with the evacuation, or overwhelm the communication system. So with that, also the legislation talks about medical issues, which are an exception, and also transportation. Children will have their phone before and after to coordinate for logistics. The other thing parents talked about was consistent policy from class to class, and it would be nice if it was from school to school. So our website has a link to the survey results, and it also has resources that are from across the nation, and then what I wanted to talk about, the brain pain study.
Can you wrap it up in just a couple of seconds?
It's the brain drain study, and the mere presence of even a phone that's turned off reduces the cognitive capacity when it's nearby, and it's a community-wide disruption. I think you get our point. We're here to help. We want to help. We know you have limitations. If it's on your agenda, we'd be happy to come back. And we have our first Zoom meeting this Thursday with parents. Over 100 parents have asked to be in a community with us. So we're gonna continue to work on this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. And again, I just reiterate, with it not being on the agenda, that is the reason that we're not commenting, because we are precluded by law to comment on anything that is not on our agenda. But we really appreciate you coming. We appreciate the information. We'll make sure this is disseminated to all board members, and we will look at it. Thank you. I'm just going to double check and make sure we don't have anything else. I still see nothing online, no signups for public speaking online. So at this point, I think that we will go ahead and close out our public comment section for the evening and move on now to our consent agenda. Does anyone have anything that they wish to pull from the consent agenda? Okay, I was going to go ahead and pull the minutes briefly. But other than that, I don't have anything else to pull. If there's no anything else that needs to be pulled or comments or questions, is there a motion on the consent agenda?
I have to make that motion. Can I just clarify, are you pulling the regular meeting minutes?
The
or
regular
the
meeting minutes, yes.
Okay.
Yes, 3.1.
Okay, thanks for that clarification. Buckle up, everyone.
I know it's a long one.
This is a page-long motion here. I move that the governing board approve consent agenda items 3.2, the governing board May 13, 2025 executive session meeting minutes as presented. 3.3, the expense voucher memorandum as presented. 3.4, the field trip request memorandum as presented. 3.5, the fundraising request memorandum as presented. 3.6, the personnel memorandum as presented. 3.7, the acceptance with gratitude of the gifts and donations memorandum as presented. 3.8, the use of governing board signature stamps for fiscal year 2025-2026 as presented. 3.9, the check signers for district bank accounts for fiscal year 2025-2026 as presented. 3.10, the delegate authority for issuance of duplicate warrants for fiscal year 2025-2026 as presented. 3.11, the authorization for district representative for emergency procurements and bid protests for fiscal year 2025-2026 as presented. 3.12, the authorization for district representative for disposal of assets for fiscal year 2025-2026 as presented. 3.13, the authorization for district representative for request for proposal procurements for fiscal year 2025-2026 as presented. 3.14, the student activities treasurers for fiscal year 2025-2026 as presented. 3.15, the intergovernmental agreement between CFSD and the Arizona Board of Regents, University of Arizona for dual enrollment as presented. 3.16, the addition of the core and supplemental textbooks and resources for the elementary, middle, and high school levels, and the removal of the core and supplementary resources as presented. 3.17, the award to General Acrylics for the replacement of the tennis and basketball courts at Esperero Canyon Middle School in the amount of $501,266.71 as presented. And 3.18, the award to Capcom for the exterior fence, gates, and canopy painting at Canyon View Elementary School in the amount of $112,861 as presented.
Okay, we have a rather lengthy motion. Is there a nice succinct second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second for the consent agenda items 3.2 through 3.18. If there is no further discussion, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. And the only reason I pulled 3.1, which is the regular meeting minutes from the previous board meeting, there's one sentence under discussion and reports, item 7.1, that says the fiscal year 2026 M&O budget will be an agenda topic at the next board meeting on May 27th. And of course, it is not an agenda topic on our meeting this evening because there have been no changes to the straw budget from what was presented on what would have been the 13th, correct? May 13th. So I thought it might make some sense to strike that sentence from our meeting minutes. No one will probably ever look at it and say, hey, it wasn't on the next meeting agenda, but it jumped out at me when I read these because it is indeed not on our agenda this time.
Good catch.
And if nobody has any objections to that, we would just take a motion for that as amended.
Are you ready for that?
You guys are okay? We're ready.
I move that the governing board approve the governing board May 13th, 2025 regular meeting minutes as amended.
We have a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes.
Second.
And a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Thank you. All right, we're now going to move on to item 4, which is our unfinished business. And this is item 4.1, the approval of revisions to the CFSD Performance Award Plan. This is a second reading, hopefully an action item this evening. And I'm going to turn this over to our Associate Superintendent, Mindy Westover.
Good evening. So this is our second reading. Following the first reading of the Performance Award Plan on May 13th, 2025, there was a recommendation to clarify the number of collaborative inquiry team meetings each site is expected to offer annually. The feedback has been incorporated into the revised plan. So you will see that the revision now includes that each site is required to hold a minimum of 14 meetings a year, and 12 of those meetings must be attended to be eligible for the full performance award plan. The other changes, there are no other changes to the plan other than that. And that is on, I believe, the 4th page of the plan. That I'd take any questions regarding those changes.
Thanks for taking our feedback on board. We appreciate that. I think it does help to ensure that the success, that the teachers are set up for success and being able to, and that the guardrails are very clear as to the expectations there.
And I think it'll help with consistency across the district in
Agreed.
terms of our CIT teams.
Agree.
And just to clarify, this kind of puts us back to where we were 2 or 3 years ago.
Correct.
With the old data teams system where this was a requirement in the performance award plan for teachers to attend and actively participate in those meetings as well. And that had been suspended for just a couple of years while we instituted the new continuous improvement system, the CIT system. And now that that's up and running, this is appropriately coming back to be part of those parameters. So it's not anything new really for our teachers, though it is new over the last couple of years.
Yes, that we did give some time for those to get established, and we feel like it is time, and they are established, and our sites are fully running, and most sites are anywhere between above 14. Most
Right.
of them are running around 16 to 18 a year, so
Yeah.
we feel like this is a fair number.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Any other comments, suggestions, concerns,
No concerns.
kudos?
Kudos given.
Kudos for the change.
My voice is out, guys. What are we taking?
Happy to. You need a call from it?
Go for it. Just take the bull by the horns.
All right, I move that the governing board approve the revisions to the CFSD Performance Award Plan as presented.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the revisions to the Performance Award Plan. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Thank you, Mindy.
Thank you.
All right, we're now moving on to new business. Item 5.1 is consideration of revisions to the facility rental rate schedule per policy KF, community use of school facilities. This is a first reading this evening, and we're welcoming Travis Coulter, our Director of Community Schools, to the podium to present his fees.
Hello. It's been a while since
It has been a while.
Good to see you.
Good to see you all. Yes, I'm Travis Coulter, the Director of Community Schools, and I'm here to present potential facility rental rates for your consideration tonight. Arizona state statute requires school district governing boards to annually review the fee schedule for the lease of school property. In CFSD, Community Schools facilitates the rental process for our district property. We essentially act as the liaison between the renter and the school. So we're kind of the centralized communication point for renters reaching out to the district inquiring about the rentals. All the monies that are derived from those rentals we take and deposit into the school's individual civic center accounts. Those funds can be expended by them at the discretion of their principal for any of the civic center school purposes. Community Schools does not receive any of the funds. We just manage the process of depositing and receiving and bill collecting and things like that. We do have a 0.25 FTE that works in our office that manages this process. That position is called the Facility Rental Coordinator. And so I wanted to make that clear as well.
The civic funds are used to pay the salary.
I was
Right,
going to ask that we can
Yes.
use those funds for community schools to pay that person.
Yes.
that's correct,
So
yes.
civic funds used to pay all the payroll costs and everything first, and then any excess
Right.
is what the principal has discretion to use.
Okay.
They
Correct.
can use supplies or anything that's building related, so they can replace rugs or things like that, building.
Yes. And so over the past several years, the costs and volume of our usage as a district has been reviewed and adjusted when needed. And so each year I reach out to our facilities director and our business director and ask them about those questions, since they're the ones receiving and paying out the utility bills across the district. So this year, Lisa Tatel, our director of finance, and Brian McNitt, our director of facilities, came together and reviewed those numbers, and they would recommend, based on utility use over the past year, a 7% increase to the facility rental rate schedule, fee schedule. And so in addition to that, we would also like you to consider, sorry, I've got a bug in my face. There's a facility rental application fee, and then there's also a change fee in case a renter comes to us later, after all the communication has happened and the dates are set and everything, we have a change fee. Both of those have been set at $15 for more than the past 15 years now. And so we're also asking that you consider an increase of that rate from $15 to $25, because that money is one of the fees that is, or two of the fees that are directly also helping to support the salary and benefits of the facility rental coordinator that works in our office. Additionally, we build language into the rental contract that allows us to make changes if needed, based on overage or additional, for example, custodial time. If they are on campus longer, we can charge more than what is initially quoted in the rental contract. Also, we will be diligent in monitoring and responding to any potential rate increases that we would experience as a district regarding utilities throughout the year, and if necessary, we would bring that information back to the board. It's pretty unusual. We've not had to do that in the past. But then finally, we also reach out to our insurance trust each year, because part of the rental process requires that a renter possess a $1 million certificate of liability and property damage insurance. So we reach out to them each year and ask them, is this amount still adequate, based on common practice in the state? And they said, again, yes, that the $1 million policy is adequate for renters. So then you received, I believe, already versions of the current rate sheet that was adopted for the 24-25 school year, as well as the proposed 25-26 rental rate document. And yeah, so those items are presented tonight in the first reading for your consideration. Would you have any questions for me this evening at this point?
I do have a question.
Okay,
You
sure.
said the funds can be used excess funds can be used at the schools. So if Sunrise Drive has excess funds, can those funds only be used at Sunrise Drive, or can it
Correct.
be peanut butter? Okay, so only
Yeah.
at the school.
Yes, each principal essentially has their own coded Civic Center fund, and when we receive, for example, Sunrise Drive, there is a common renter that is there every week. Those monies go directly into the Sunrise Drive Civic Center account, and then Mrs. Davidson at Sunrise Drive has the authority to expend those dollars as she sees necessary on campus.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
And I think something important is, the state statute requires us not to, that we have to not underwrite any costs for this. So
Right.
when we're renting out our facilities, we have to recoup the cost, because
Right.
otherwise it's a gift of public funds for us to not recoup those costs.
Correct.
I have a couple questions, if I may.
Sure,
Thank you,
yeah.
Travis. Great to see you. One is very quick, which is under high school. I don't see the new orchestra room listed in the 25-26 draft. So if I missed it, I apologize.
No, you didn't. Typically, spaces that are not listed are because they are not allowed to be rented.
Okay, so we're not
So
renting
there
that
are
one.
some spaces
Okay.
that we won't rent.
Okay.
Based on maybe valuable equipment or things like that. So,
Great. That works for me.
yes.
And then, apologies if I missed this. Can you explain the differences between Class 1, Class 2, Class 3, and Class 4, please? And if I missed that, I'm sorry.
Sure, I can, and just on the outside chance, I did bring a copy of the policy with me in case a question like that came up. So policy KF is the policy that we're referring to, and I believe it's in Regulation A, policy KFR, or policy regulation KFRA. Renter Class 1. This category of user is exempt from facility rental fees, but may be subject to direct costs incurred by the district. So Class 1, some examples would be civic activities in the community, like when we host an election as an election site,
Okay.
something like that, or a direct service group affiliated with CFSD that would be considered to be a group that would not exist except for their connection to the district. So an FFO or the district foundation would be an example of a Class 1 renter.
Okay.
A Class 2 renter would be a Category 4, regular program activities by nonprofit service organizations where the majority of their members are CFSD students. So you might have, like I can think of an example at Canyon View, that there is a Girl Scout troop that meets at Canyon View, and they are allowed to use the classroom space for free because the majority of their membership is Canyon View students, and they are not incurring any other district costs. So there's not a supervisor that has to stay there or a custodian that has to support them. If there was, then they would be responsible for those personnel fees. Class 3 renters are nonprofit organizations who don't fall under Category 2. So this could be a religious organization, a homeowners association, a social group, performing arts groups in the community. I think of several performing arts groups that we have that operate as nonprofits, even though they may be charging money for admission to their shows and things like that, fall under Category 3. And then Category 4 is simply a for-profit entity.
Okay, thank you for that.
Yeah.
That's super helpful. And then last question that I have is, I understand we need to cover our costs. That said, I'm surprised these rates aren't higher. Yes, what they currently are. So can you speak to that?
Actually, I don't have a lot of information about how the rates were initially set to where they are, other than when I inherited the position. I annually go to our director of finance and to our business director and ask that question about our utility rates and whether the district has a need to increase those rates based on expenditure increases from the past year. What I can say is that there's definitely, when we have rentals, it's very rare that when someone is paying a fee that there is not overage that is deposited into those Civic Center accounts. So there is money that is being built up into those Civic Center accounts where regular rentals are occurring.
So does that mean that there's the opportunity to increase the costs?
I mean, I think that's, you know, I mean, I'm not the one making that decision, obviously, so that's probably a
Right,
discussion
what I think
that,
he's saying is that we're already covering the costs and
And then
having
some.
excess.
Yeah.
So charging more is just,
Could,
we
but
could, but it just doesn't seem like something we'd want to
To
do.
Gina's question, does state statute limit what we can charge?
No.
I can also say that we do get a lot of people who walk away from rentals because they believe that our rates are exorbitant in comparison to other school districts.
Interesting.
So
That's interesting.
that is an interesting, you know, anecdote to,
We know our
you know,
facilities are much
we'll
better,
hear
so-
comments like, well, you know, Amphi only charges such and such, or Flowing Wells that, you know, I mean, so there are definitely other places that people choose to go instead of our facilities based on the rates that we have, so.
questions?
I would be curious to understand more about what the revenue stream looks like for this. Perhaps it's something that could be provided at some point to the
And I
board
would
if you
also-
feel that's appropriate.
Yeah, I mean, most of the rentals are at the high school.
The high school and Sunrise Drive,
And Sunrise
Sunrise,
Drive has
yeah.
the one that's
Yeah.
recurring.
recurring.
But
I would assume the vast majority of them are going to be in categories 1 through 3. We probably don't have a lot of nonprofits using us, do we? I'm sorry, for-profits using
Correct.
us?
We don't
Yeah.
have many for-profit entities. And typically when for-profit entities come, they're the ones that are saying, I can't believe that's what you charge, and then go elsewhere.
where does Tucson
Interesting.
Symphony, where do they fall?
I believe they're Category 3.
Who was that, Denise?
The Symphony.
TSO.
Symphony, okay.
Yeah, I feel like
It's
they're
a Category
Category 3. I would have to
Oh, yeah,
double
they're-
check that, but
they
I'm
are.
pretty sure.
They're a nonprofit.
Okay.
Yeah.
But we could certainly, I mean, you certainly have information on what is in, I would think, in any of the financial statements that we review, you can see this account and see what the revenue buildup is in the Civic Center accounts in just the most recent financial statements that we would have had for 2024. But I would assume also that you could provide balances in the week in review.
Yes, I can.
for board members who are interested in that information.
Well, as someone, I just want to say that our facilities, as someone who has a child who plays an instrument and had rehearsal every week at the high school and plays in 2 different groups that play at the high school fairly consistently, our facilities are really well thought of, particularly at the high school. And I have heard anecdotally that our prices are very fair, which has me thinking, based on Gina's question, there is a lot of usage. And is this something that we could maybe use a little better to possibly keep things maintained even more?
I'll voice the other side of that, which is our, not duty necessarily, but our role in the community. I think it's something we should also consider as we're balancing that with, you know, these are also a lot of the same folks who are voting for bonds and overrides and a lot of other ways that our facilities do get maintained.
Right.
Yeah.
But still.
But still.
I know, I just think every time she had rehearsal there, you know, the director of TPYO would say, this is such a gorgeous facility, why would we want to go anywhere else? So it really is a testament to our district that, you know, people want to use our facilities.
Anything else for Travis this evening?
Remind me, this is not,
This is a first reading, so
is
it'll
a
come
first
back
reading.
it'll come back in 2 weeks.
I'll see you in 2 weeks.
We'll see you in 2 weeks.
I personally would just like to ask for more information about we can review before the second reading.
Okay. All right.
Thanks,
Travis, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Okay, let's move on to item 5.2, our consideration of revisions to policy IKF, graduation requirements. This is also a first reading, and we're turning the podium over to our Executive Director of Curriculum and Assessment, Cheryl Castro.
Hello. So presented for your consideration, as Eileen said, are the revisions to policy IKF, graduation requirements. We did submit the board memo last week with the changes that are listed on the memo. However, we had some very good suggestions from you in the last few days. So with your permission, I'd like to mention those. They'll be added to the second reading when we revise these. So we're going to start out a little bit differently than what it says on the memo. If you go to page 90 of the policy, the bottom of the page above the first bullet, that first full paragraph above the bullet on the bottom of the page, it starts with, in addition to the requirements. We're there. So the suggestion was made that we delete the phrase on the third line, during the final semester, delete that, and then have the phrase read, require that a student be enrolled full-time as follows, because that phrase seemed out of place, and I agree, I think it was. So on the second reading, we'll show that as a deletion.
Cheryl, I'm not in the big PDF. I'm just in the policy itself. Do you know what page of the policy?
On the first page of the policy.
First page of the policy at the bottom?
Bottom of the page, right above the bottom bullet in that first full paragraph that starts, in addition to the
Okay.
requirements. Sorry, I should have checked for understanding with a thumbs up if you found the paragraph.
So can you repeat what the
Sure.
suggested change is?
So in the paragraph starting with, in addition to the requirements, the third line, it says, during the final semester. That was out of context.
Yeah.
We're going to remove during final semester, so what we'll read as follows. In addition to the requirements specified in this policy, graduation eligibility and the awarding of a diploma or certificate of completion require that a student be enrolled full-time as follows.
Yes.
Yeah? So
Got it. Thank
I'll
you.
add that to the second reading. Same page, it's first page and second page, bottom of page 90, top of page 91. We clarified the phrase enrolled full-time for freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors, and the policy language and the information provided in the high school course guide and the policy are now in alignment. And so you'll see that freshmen and sophomores must be enrolled in 7 classes each semester or 6 classes and an assigned study hall on the Catalina Foothills High School campus. And then if you turn the page to the top of the second page, That's page 91 in your packet. Juniors and seniors, and the suggestion was made to keep the language, to mirror the language from the policy in the preceding paragraph that said be enrolled full-time, must be enrolled full-time. So on that bullet with juniors and seniors, we're going to delete the word carry and say must be enrolled, a minimum of 6 classes on their schedule each semester. All classes must be taken on the Catalina Foothills High School campus. A suggestion was made to clarify that perhaps for JTED classes, we might want to make an exception here. I spoke with the high school team. They'd like to leave this as we've done with other policies where the exceptions are not written into policy but are on a case-by-case basis. So for example, right now there is a CTE class, JTED class down at the JTED campus. I think it's veterinary science, wasn't it, Dr. Bartlett? Vet tech. That starts so early in the day that unless we allow students to leave earlier, they're not going to be able to take it. So in those cases, the principal consults with the counselor and the CTE teacher to make a determination to allow that class to count as their 6th class, with the JTED campus being considered to be an extension of our campus at that time. But they prefer that we not write that into the policy, that we do, as we've always done, know that there are exceptions that are made to situations like this.
Question. Do you want questions now or?
Sure, let's go.
Okay. So the current wording, thanks for proactively tackling the JTED because that was going to be a question. Next question. This says the classes have to be taken on our campus, but it does not say the classes have to be our classes. So what about the enrollments in online courses?
That's also been clarified by our counselors and our principal of the high school. The AOI classes are taken, and I can give you their wording right here, are taken during summer breaks, after school, on weekends. They are not taken during the school day. So AOI classes cannot count as one of the 6 classes that they must be enrolled in during our school day.
Okay, cool, thank you.
Let me give you their verbiage because they said it very nicely. So they said, all juniors and seniors must take 6 classes on the CFHS campus, even if they are taking an AOI. The AOI classes are either taken over the summer or after school to recover credit or to accelerate toward an early graduation. Good?
Thanks.
Okay.
One follow-up question on that.
Sure.
I understand that the preferred approach is for the exceptions to be exceptions. But is there language in here anywhere that acknowledges that there are exceptions?
No.
Because if I'm reading this and listening to that, I'm not making that. It's immediately telling me that my JTED classes are.
I think just like everything, we've had other questions like this in the past. If you recall other policies we've talked about. In this case, if you have a student who's interested in the vet tech program, the teacher's going to say, hey, that class starts at 2:30, 3 days a week. In order to take that class, we need to get principal approval for that to be your 6th class. And they take care of it that way. So they don't cut the students off and just say, no, you can't even consider it. They're doing they know what students are going to want to take. And so they know what their pathway is. They know what their interests are. And so that's taken care of. They just didn't want to put it into policy. Because otherwise we're going to start putting exception after exception after exception.
And how many classes are there that start?
This year, the only one they mentioned was the 2:30. It happens very rarely.
Right.
The vet tech class at 2:30 this year. Typically, the JTED campus tries their best to schedule those classes late in the day so that kids can get to campus. But
Yeah.
sometimes it just can't be done. I'm assuming it probably has something to do with staffing. If you have a teacher who can't teach later in the day and they're saying, I'll teach it at 2:30, and that's the only teacher they have, I'm assuming that might be one of the reasons that they have to schedule earlier. But the counselor said this rarely happens, and when it does, they make accommodations for the students.
And I understand the wisdom of not wanting to start an ongoing list of exceptions. I question the wisdom of not acknowledging that exceptions are possible. That's the distinction I'm making.
We had this conversation about a different policy recently, did we not? And where did we land? I'm trying to remember where we landed. Do you remember, Cheryl?
I recall that we did not put in the exceptions.
I think that's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct.
I think that's correct, which would make this consistent with that. I guess I would just suggest that you guys think about that before you come back for the second reading, and you know, make a final decision on, you know, what you want to present, knowing that there's a couple of board members that are interested in perhaps seeing some sort of statement.
Okay, sounds good.
But-
Ready for that second bullet that's really the third
Yeah.
bullet?
Yeah.
All right, so on the second page of the policy, that's page 91, in the paragraph that starts with 1 asterisk, a grammatical error was corrected. The contraction its was replaced with the possessive pronoun its. Good eye, Jacqueline.
Sorry. I'm a former tech writer, old habits die hard.
I'll send them to you in advance from now on. At the bottom of the second page of the policy, that's page 91 in your packet, in the paragraph with 3 asterisks, 3 changes were made, not 2. 3 is, I'm going to change that on the second reading. So the first one was the change that was required about Holocaust instruction. Language referring to social studies instruction on the Holocaust and other genocides was updated as required by statute to use the idea of school days was replaced with class periods. There had been a lot of communication with ADE that school days was pretty broad, when really what we're talking about is class periods. A question was also asked about this particular area, Holocaust instruction on those two separate occasions. Happens in our district in grade 7 social studies and grade 9 world history, even though the Holocaust is mentioned in many other subjects in different content areas for different reasons. The instruction that's referred to in this particular piece of the policy happens during in grades 7 and 9. Also, we replaced this will be on the second reading. ARS 15710 was cited. That was an error. It should have been ARS 1570102. I'll add that in the next reading. And then geography was added also to the list of required topics. No changes will have to be made in our instructional day. We're already teaching everything that the statute requires and then some. Moving on to the third page of the policy, page 92. Actually, it's page 92 and 93. We've reached the end of the social studies requirements that were being phased in from 2022 to 2025. And so now is the time where we're deleting that entire section that referred to the phase-in process that goes through page 93, which is the 4th page of the policy. And we changed the subheading for that next section from social studies credit requirements for graduation for class of 2025 to just social studies credit requirements, because this is what it will be from now on. Any questions about those sections? Moving on to page 93, same page. On the 4th page of the policy, find the second paragraph under the 4 asterisks. That entire section was removed because it refers to the graduating class of 2025. Lovely human beings to whom we said adieu just a few short days ago. The subtitle was changed. The sentence referring to the civics test requirements for the graduating class of 2025 was removed, and we put the new number 70 out of 100 questions, because that's what's going to be the requirement from now on for all graduating classes. And then the phrase beginning with the graduating class of 2026 was removed. We didn't need that anymore because now it's just policy. Questions on that page?
The civics test, we give that in grade 7 or 8? I thought we gave it at the high school.
Students can take it, yeah, in middle school, and that can count toward their requirement for high school.
Oh, so this is, okay. Okay, gotcha.
That's relatively new, correct?
Relatively new.
So this is, okay.
How does
So
that
when,
work?
yeah, what grade do we give it at in high school?
I think it's given in,
Junior year.
yeah, grade, is it sophomore or junior year? I could check on
So
that and
I'd
get back to
recommend
you.
that the language here be cleaned up a little bit, because it doesn't say when it is given, but it says that a student in grade 7 or 8 may take it, which I find confusing.
Yeah, would we offer it that early if someone had a burning need? Said
I mean, yeah, I was just kind of wondering how a 7th or an 8th grader would take the test. Do they like go to their teacher and say, I want to take this test?
Well, if they transfer in with it.
If they transfer in with it, that makes sense, yes.
Okay. Then we could just say, if they transfer in with it, we don't need to specify the grade level.
Isn't it part of the curriculum? Isn't it part of the curriculum?
Yeah, they start talking about the civics testing. And it's available to everyone online. The kids know they have to take it, and so they take it and retake it and retake it.
I'd ask that we clean up the language there around when do we actually give that test?
All right, I will.
Versus when is it a free-for-all and kids can go and look for it and take it and say, I've done it.
But is there a time?
There is, we actually have to give it.
A dedicated time to give it?
junior year with
Yeah, in a
history.
class period. It's actually given in a class period because it's a requirement.
But you can do it as much before or after that, as long as you get it done before you graduate.
You can take it as many times as you want.
As long as you get
Pass.
70% before you
70%.
graduate.
But you can just keep trying.
Yep.
But we actually have to give it, and that's the part that's missing here.
We have to
What I'm
administer
saying.
it
We have to administer it.
formally, right?
One time.
Okay, I will add that, thank you. We are going to move on to page 96, which is no, where was that? That was on the 7th page of the policy, in the section titled Special Education under Section B. That is on page 96, 96, yeah, 96. Now I remember. We have been trying to catch parents/parents legal guardians. Here's one more. So I think we have them all now, right? So I changed parents to parents legal guardians on that one. And then on the very last one, the statutes on the very last page of the policy, the statutes that were referred to in the policies were updated on the final page, which means that I added 15701, 15701.02, 15710, and you'll see those on the second reading, since they were referenced in the text of the policy. Good collaboration. Thank you.
It happens every year with this policy.
The IKF
We
is,
parse it out like this every single year.
I think
with
it's
this
going to be
policy.
perfect next year.
You would think so.
I'm going to put a nickel on it. I think it's going to happen.
Oh, so, yeah, to Gina's point about clarifying the language about when the test is offered.
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll
Well,
take
no,
that
but
back.
Just some guidance, like in CPR instruction and training, it says CFSD includes the mandatory training sessions in the 9th grade, health and wellness, so language like that.
I will take a look at that and bring that back. Thank you.
Great.
Anything else on IKF? Other questions?
Anybody?
Because now it's world language.
Okay, again, this is a first reading. It's coming back to us in 2 weeks for a second reading and for incorporation of all of those changes. Cheryl, thanks for your work on that. And we're going to move on to item 5.3, which will also be presented by Cheryl Castro. Consideration of academic standards for K through 12 world languages. Again, a first reading this evening.
So the last time we presented world languages, I was reminding some of the board members earlier tonight, in 2010, the presentation was 2.5 hours long. It was the best thing ever. It was so much fun. It won't be 2.5 hours.
Look at our guests.
Well,
They're
you were
just
the
like,
only
oh
one here out of
no.
all of us. You were the only one here.
It was a thing of beauty. But I would like to recreate for you this evening.
I have snacks.
We were all so excited, and Mary Jo was leading the charge, so it was an exciting time for all of us. I used to teach Spanish. Okay. So tonight, we have presented for your consideration are the refreshed standards for K-12 world languages. I think it's important to note, this was not a revision. It was not a full-scale revision. It was a refreshing of the standards because of a national document that came out for the Can-Do intercultural statements that made teachers start thinking about how we're teaching in the classroom. And so that's why this is a very abbreviated report tonight about what was changed in the World Languages Standards. So the standards define what students need to know, understand, and be able to do as a result of their study of Mandarin Chinese and/or Spanish in Catalina Foothills School District. They align, of course, with the Arizona World and Native Languages Standards, sharing a common emphasis on cultural competence and performance-based proficiency-oriented instruction and assessment. The standards are designed to prepare students for real-world communication. That was a major foundational tenet of our 2010 standards. We wanted to move away from a traditional grammar translation program, sorry Reagan, to a more communicative approach, where we're actually using the language for real purposes. Students address the interpretive, interpersonal, and presentational modes of communication. And the standards also highlight the importance of cultural competence as a skill that enables learners to communicate respectfully and effectively across local, national, and international cultural boundaries. That emphasis on culture, you'll see also, or you saw when you reviewed the standards, that we put it first in the standards instead of where it used to be, which was almost last. And so now it's the idea of culture comes first. The team talks a lot with their students about how culture, the meaning of culture, and how it's, even if they walk away from their Spanish or their Chinese class, and in 5, 10, 15 years they speak none of the language anymore, what we hope they retain is that idea of intercultural competence, being able to interact with people effectively and respectfully, viewing different cultural perspectives as needed. So the refreshed standards reflect our district's commitment to preparing students for success in a global society. These standards support our vision of developing competent and culturally aware communicators who can apply their skills in meaningful ways, collaborating across cultures, engaging with diverse perspectives, and participating actively in local and global communities. So it was a lot of reading for you to do on the standards pages, but I can tell you that the main difference with our standards now, and it was the thing that this is an example of what the standards looked like before, and we had one set for every grade level. And so even though, for example, interpersonal communication appeared back when we first started with our brand new program in 2010, in our new ones, we also have interpersonal communication, but instead of listing different topics that are addressed by grade level, because that we found out doesn't work, the topics spiral based on where you are. Our new standards are focused on performance outcomes. And so if you're a novice, that's why you saw in the standards, you saw novice, intermediate, advanced. If you're a novice, whether you're a high school senior or a kindergartner, you're going to produce the same kind of language. It doesn't matter what level you're at. You are going to produce the same language. Now, the high school student may have already developed some abilities to learn, some strategies that they're learning to acquire language a little bit more quickly than perhaps the kindergartner, although in my experience, the kindergartners tend to learn a little bit when we talk about the speed, because they have no fear. They have no fear, and so they just go into it and start using language. So the main difference is that we no longer list standards by grade level. We list interpersonal communication, novice, intermediate, advanced, and then we use our scoring rubrics and our continuums to guide student performance to the next goal. Whether you're in elementary, middle, or high school, doesn't matter. The second thing that we're focusing on is we're really refocused. When we planned our original program in 2010, we relied on research to build the program. We had consultants come in, Mimi Met, Greg Duncan, Peggy Boyles came in. These are nationally and internationally known folks who came in to help us build the program. And so we already are using research-based theories and strategies and for the foundations of our classroom. But what we're doing now is a refocused interest on acquisition-driven instruction. And so we're trying to use the idea of comprehension-based learning, where teachers are thinking about the minutes of instruction they have available to them, because time is outcome. Time spent in the language results in progress for the students, if it's applied correctly. So back when I was a really bad teacher, and I made students, conjugate verbs, and Tom, I'm sure he's a language guy. conjugate verbs. I conjugated verbs. I thought conjugating verbs was the best things, and memorizing dialogues. I always was looking for that other person who knew part B of the dialogue. In the real world, nobody knew it. And so instead of doing those things, we're having teachers using strategies that will require input to be comprehensible, because that's how acquisition starts. You have to understand it first with comprehensible input. It has to be engaging for students, and there have to be a series of questions that are asked strategically to kind of pull students up to the next level of proficiency in a way that's as, in a classroom, in a way that's as engaging and entertaining as it possibly can be. So those are the two main features that the team asked me to report back to you on about the main changes in the program. Did you have any questions as you went through? Because we still have 2 hours and 10 minutes to go.
No questions on this one. Folks? Tom, Jacqueline?
Come on, Tom.
All right, if you insist. So what I did notice on a few of these standards, so the cultural, interpersonal communication, et cetera, is that the detail is around point 3, like a score of 3, with everything under and everything over, basically referring back to that as our
Yes.
target. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's not a separate defined, this constitutes a 2, so much as it is incrementally below a 3.
Well, we did make a little bit of a change to the fine print. So 3 is what we're shooting for. So let's say that you are a Spanish 1 student at Catalina Foothills High School. Your target for a 3 is Novice High. Novice High is clearly defined in all of our rubrics and all of our performance tasks. They know that they're shooting for sentences, strings of sentences. They know that they're going to be parroting a lot. They know that they're going to be making lots of mistakes, not as many as intermediates do, interestingly, but they're going to be making, we know exactly what's going to happen at those levels. If you look down at level 2.0, so I'm on page 9. If you look up, because that's interpersonal communication, which is the bedrock, speaking and listening, two-way communication. When you walk into our classrooms, you'll see a lot of speaking and listening, two-way communication. But if you look at score 2.0, it says performs 1 sub-level below the targeted proficiency outcome for the class or course. So if your goal is Novice High, then you might be performing at Novice Mid. And Novice Mid, we have a set of descriptors for that as well. And so is that what you're talking about? But then let's say that you're performing at score 4.0. Instead of hitting Novice High, you are 1 sub-level above the targeted proficiency outcome. That means you're performing at Intermediate Low, which in turn, if you're in Intermediate Low, you're performing at least 50% of the time at the next sub-level. So it sounds complicated, but it's not once you know the rubrics and what you know to look for.
Perfect. And that was the root of my question, because I think with this shift toward this approach to teaching world languages, it can be a little bit harder to be that objective. So that's very helpful to hear the background behind that.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, because it's a lot. I've taught both ways. I've taught many ways, but it's super easy to correct a 50-question true-false quiz. It's super easy to correct a multiple choice listening assignment. You have to really know the rubric well to listen to what kids are saying, to see if they're using, we have what they call the inverted pyramid of language proficiency, and down on the bottom, it's basically 1 step above doing nothing. It's repeating what your interlocutor is saying. It's having words and phrases that are super memorized, all the way up to where you have sentences, strings of sentences, connected discourse, paragraph level discourse with details, and then including native-like structures, including cultural nuance and reference. So it's a continuum of skills that expands over time. And the kids know. That's another thing that we recommitted to. When Mary Jo was leading us through the other revision, one of the things that we talked about was it's very important that kids are in on this secret, that they know what their target looks like. So if their target is to complete strings of sentences, then we had better be giving them opportunities to communicate with strings of sentences, and they should be assessing each other on, did you use strings of sentences or were you using chunks and words and phrases? And so that's a big piece of it. I thought you were going to have questions about our cultural competence continuum because it was mentioned a lot. So I'll just leave these here in case you wanted to see what they.
There is a second reading.
Well, I didn't want to. We have a lot of tools, and there's no way we need to share all of the tools. But this is one that they're particularly proud of. The team of. It's our big, so we have a continuum of language. This is our continuum of culture. And then for each classroom assignment, of course, teachers create individual rubrics based on that. So it's fun reading.
Is it in here?
Yeah, so if you look at the very first standard, in the red, in the middle of the page under 3, it says C, CFSD, Intercultural Competence Continuum. And then the successful actual can-do statements for interculturality is a very long document that we use to create this more reduced document.
We don't have that document in the board book.
No, but I could send it to you if you'd like, along with rubrics and other continuums.
I mean, if you're going to waive something like that.
They're very proud of it. They did ask me to share it, so I will include it.
Please do.
Yeah, thank you.
If you send it to me, I'll put it in the weekend review.
Okay.
Other questions for Cheryl on the K through 12 world languages refresh? It is a first reading. It'll come back to us in a couple of weeks. I'm sure we'll have questions then as well. Cheryl, thanks for your presentation. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. All right, moving on to item 6.1, which is Arizona legislative / government activity. You didn't mean to laugh so loud about government activity?
Or lack thereof.
Or lack thereof, no budget, no,
Budget.
Continuing vacation,
Oh,
no action on 1, 2, 3,
period. Not till
From
next
what
year.
not till next
I
year?
understand, though, they're shifting away from trying to combine vouchers with 1, 2, 3 on a ballot. So
For this
maybe
session.
they'll-
For this session, yeah.
What it's going to do, though, is the 3 education bills that have already been signed by the governor that have implications for the start of next school year. 1 being the technology policy,
Right.
2 being mandatory report, and 3 being directory information. They don't start until 90 days after the end of the legislative session.
Right.
So if they don't end until June 30, we're into the start of school. So ASBA has already sent us model policies, so we're probably going to start bringing those the next 2
Absolutely.
meetings so that we can have them in place
For day
for
one.
the start of the school year.
Makes
Because
sense.
they all have implications for the start of the school year. And
Absolutely.
we don't want to wait 90 days in for when they take effect.
That makes sense. And that includes the use of technology resources and instruction policies that we're
Yes.
considering bringing forward,
Yes.
correct?
Yep.
We're in talks right now with administrators and about that. So that's the only, implications for the legislative policies right now.
Oh, and it sounds like we have a leg up on that and getting that accomplished
We do,
in time, so.
yes, yes.
Okay. Anything else on legislative or governmental activity? Agenda planning is Jacqueline and I tomorrow at, I believe, 11 o'clock.
I thought
Is it 10?
10.
Is it 10? That's
You
fine.
need
I
11?
can do either. That's fine.
Okay.
I don't know why I had 11 in there, but I will be there at 10 and we'll do it in person.
Okay.
Okay. If there is nothing else, anybody, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn our meeting. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 4-0, and we are adjourned this evening at 7:49. Good meeting, everybody. Thank you for sticking it out with us this evening, our guests here.
Yeah, it's nice.